Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I always say it and I mean it. I really appreciate when you take time out of your busy schedule. I know our time is valuable. And when you choose to spend your time here, I really work to make sure that you get good value for and appreciate spending that time here. And today will be no exception. We're going to be having the pleasure of being able to chat with Dr. Daisy Khan, and we're going to talk about negotiating past myths about Muslim women, a subject that is not talked about enough or not in the right way anyhow. So welcome, Daisy. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure to be here and to talk about a subject that that I'm living and breathing every single day, and
I
I
love it.
want to talk to about.
Yeah, and to be able to air the conversation in more productive ways than we
Yeah.
often subject to. And for those of you who don't know her, Dr. Daisy Khan founded WISE, which is Women's Islamic Initiative in Spirituality and Equality. I am always about equality. It's a network of Muslim women committed to, peace building, gender equality, and human dignity, all subjects that are near and dear to my heart. So you can see it's no surprise to you, I'm sure, that I wanted her here to share with you. And she's recognized as
All
a
that
thought
good stuff, as we
all
say.
that good stuff, all that important stuff. And she's also recognized as a thought leader on Muslim women's rights and Islam in America. And she builds bridges through programs she's created like Same Difference to counter Islamophobia and extremism in all its forms. And
Yeah.
she has deservedly received numerous awards, including Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People, Huffington Post Top 10, I believe, Women Faith Leaders, Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award, which I covet, and many more. So let's dig in, Daisy, and talk about sort of the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
One of them, at least, which is sort of Islam and women's rights. I think there are a
Yeah.
lot of misconceptions around the issue, and if you want to share with us some of the key ones and how you deal with them.
Yeah, well, I first want to explain how they came about
Yeah,
because, when I first came to America, I was in college and people always thought I was a novelty because I was like the solo Muslim that they knew. They were very
yeah,
curious. They had no misconceptions about who I was, and life was really good. And then
yeah,
the Iranian Revolution unfolded. And we saw these women in chadors and these death chants at America. And so that was the first time that America actually got exposed to
yeah,
Muslims or to Iranians. And
yeah,
then people began to mistake all Muslims for Iranians, and whatever was happening in Iran, then they began to transpose it to whichever
yeah,
Muslim was there. And I was like the solo Muslim. And so I got a lot of questions, like why are women wearing burqas and why are they, calling these death chants? And
yeah,
what people did not know is that there are 57 Muslim majority nations. There were at that time probably 1.5 billion Muslims in the world.
yeah,
And we come from very diverse cultures. So
yeah.
just one country is having its revolution does not mean that every other Muslim is doing the same. So then immediately after that, we had, years later, we had 9/11.
Yeah,
And then we went right to Afghanistan. And that is when the perception of women began to get shaped because we saw images of women in black burqas.
yeah,
If you recall those moments when the
I do.
Taliban was coming out with their whips and whipping women on the streets, and the women are faceless, nameless, everything, right?
Yeah,
And then, really, between the Iranian Revolution and this, the perception got shaped in the minds of everyday Americans that all Muslim women are oppressed and
yeah,
all Muslim women are subjugated. And of course, it was true in that one instance. But the reality is there are 750 million Muslim women in the world.
yeah,
That's like 1/5 or 1/6 of humanity is a Muslim
yeah.
woman.
That's
And
that's a pretty significant number.
huge number. People can't get their heads wrapped around that number.
Yeah,
And and the truth is Muslim women have agency. And one of the things that you said, so what are some of the myths? So
yeah,
one of the myths is that women can't be leaders, because in
yes.
Afghanistan they say that women can be leaders. But did you know that the Muslim world has produced 15 Muslim women heads of state?
Yeah. That's
I'm
amazing.
talking about major,
Yeah,
major nations like Bangladesh, Pakistan, you
yeah,
know, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Turkey,
yeah,
and, a vast amount, Indonesia, which is like one of
yeah,
the largest countries, largest Muslim country.
yeah.
And yet in America, I'm not trying to show off, but in America, we haven't had a single woman
I
president. So
know.
one of the things I'm trying to say now, shouldn't America like be stepping up? And stepping up its game? Didn't we
Yeah,
like create feminism?
yeah,
So yeah, so that's one of the perceptions. But the thing
And let
is,
me just say on that, not just that they're holding leadership positions, but they are respected
yeah,
around the world for how they show up in those leadership positions as well. So
exactly,
we are so
exactly.
far behind the
And they
game.
don't have to act like men to
Yes.
be a woman leader. They just have to bring all of it that they have, the skills that women have, how women care for the welfare of all people, how
Yeah.
women bring contesting groups together. So anyway, that is one of the myths. But where is that myth actually, what is the root and what does the scripture say about it? So what's fascinating, Cindy, is that the Quran actually has an entire section that's devoted to Queen of Sheba.
Huh.
Now, I don't know if your audience know who Queen of Sheba is.
Yeah.
She would have been mentioned in the Bible. She would have
Yeah.
been mentioned in the Jewish scriptures as well because she's biblical.
Yeah.
And she was pitted against Solomon, who was a king,
Yeah.
but with magical powers. And Solomon wanted her to submit to his God because he believed in the one God, and she didn't. She was a pagan queen.
Yeah.
But she was a queen with a mighty empire. And so when she received the letter from Solomon, and this is where the art of negotiation comes in, when she receives the letter from Solomon commanding her to come to him and submit to his God, meaning submit to me.
Yeah.
And so she's like takes pause and she begins to think of what the consequences would be if she did not agree to his
Yeah.
his didn't pay attention to his letter. She goes to her subjects,
Yeah.
and her council, and she says, "So tell me, council, what shall I do? Because when kings come into town, they destroy everything."
Yeah.
And she cared about the welfare of her people, so she
People.
was trying to prevent a war from
Yeah.
happening and destroying her entire empire because she knew that he had greater powers. And so her counselors tell her, "Hey, we are behind you. We're a mighty power. Don't worry about it. Just if you decide to go, we're right behind you." And then she says, "No, no, I will choose another way." So she sends him a letter, negotiated, like
Yeah.
trying to negotiate. She sends a letter along with gifts, like tons of gifts, like gold and
Yeah.
onyx and sheep and whatever else. And he gets so angry because his powers are more God-given powers. He has powers, spiritual powers. He
Yeah.
gets angry. He says, "You are trying to send me gifts? Like, how dare you?" So anyway, he tells her, "Come to me, otherwise you're really going to be in trouble." So
Yeah.
she leaves and goes and sees him. And then the story goes that eventually she walks into his palace and she notices that he has great mighty powers because he has actually moved her throne from one place to the other.
Okay.
So this gets in the realm of mysticism,
Yeah.
but we're not going to go there. But the point is, she averted a very big disaster for her people, and
Yeah.
she negotiated with him. And then eventually she accepted his God because she realized that his God was more powerful than her God, and she became a monotheist.
Yeah.
But here the Quran actually compares her to the Pharaoh,
Yeah.
says that she was a wise political leader. It talks about like a political leader. She's the archetype of a political
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
This is the scriptures now. So I tell people, if our scriptures are telling us a woman is the archetype of a political leader who's wise, who cared more about the welfare of our people, then who are we to deny
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
leadership
Maybe
roles?
we ought to listen. Maybe there's something
Well,
there.
and I go to people like Taliban, when they say a woman cannot be this and a woman
Yeah.
cannot be that. I said, "Do you not believe in the scripture? Is that not what you always point
Yeah.
to?
Well,
That
and I
this is,
love that you mentioned about not acting like a man, because and obviously I can't let it slide without mentioning, because I mean, for me, that was the genesis of creating the art of feminine negotiation. I mean,
yeah,
for so long, what happened that we started seeing so-called feminine traits as a weakness or a
that's a
liability,
weakness. Oh my God.
as opposed to our greatest strength? And you mentioned about the pagan queen. It is not that long ago in history that and people forget. It is remarkable to me how they forget. People used to worship a goddess, and
Yeah,
a very different time. So I
yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
any other myths that you want to share? Although I think that, I mean, that really is the mic drop moment there about the
Well, I
leadership
mean,
piece.
and the second myth, which has now taken root, is because of what's happening, is that women are denied education, that
Yeah.
Muslim women cannot be educated.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, this is something that's very hard, close to my heart, because I don't want to see women denied
Yeah.
education.
Yeah.
So I see something, in Afghanistan, girls are denied
Yeah.
education.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, right after the pullout of the US troops, 7 women, 7 gutsy women,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about a Jewish woman, a Christian woman, myself, an atheist, a Hindu
Yeah.
woman, and 2 other women. We all decided that we were going to go meet Taliban face to face.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, to negotiate,
Yeah.
to sit across the table,
Yeah.
to see eyeball to eyeball. And people thought we were insane to go there 6 months
Can
after
you
the
imagine?
pullout.
Yeah.
And when we arrived, we were taken off the plane and we thought, oh, maybe we're getting kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then we were treated to a VIP treatment saying,
Huh.
welcome. You are the first people who have come to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Now, they were stunned that these women had the
I
audacity to
bet.
come to Afghanistan when we
I
don't even have an embassy in Afghanistan. We
bet.
have nothing. No one would have bailed us out because
Yeah.
we left. And then we had face-to-face conversations with them. And I cited verses from the Quran that talk about the importance
Yeah.
of education. And, they listened, they agreed. They said if we could, we would open the schools tomorrow.
Yeah.
But, one of them said, well, you're holding all our money because you have sanctioned us. All the money is locked up in your treasury.
Yeah.
And of course, we had gone there also to see how we might be able to unlock,
Yeah.
the $8-9 billion that we have sitting in the treasury, which actually belongs to the Afghan people. So I had a Jewish lady with me, 80 years old, and she told them, she said, I'm Jewish, and they'd never met a Jewish person in their life. I'm Jewish, and I'm here to see how I can unfreeze these assets that
Yeah.
belong to you. And then they turned around and said, are all Americans like you?
Yeah.
Because this is the first time they had actually met people
Yeah.
who were speaking from the same language that they speak
Yeah.
from, because we were a faith-based people,
Yeah.
and we spoke from their perspective, so they were resonating and they were
Yeah.
understanding what we were saying. And then after we came back, we stayed in touch with them. We actually pushed the Congress to
Yeah.
lift the unfreeze the assets. They have agreed to unfreeze the assets. The only thing is we're trying to figure out which bank it's going to go through.
Yeah.
But this is the art of feminine negotiation.
See,
There was
see,
not a
I did
single
not know
man
this
in
about
the
you.
room.
Gosh, I already wanted you on the show, and now I am like I bow down to you. Not only is that gutsy, but my gosh, doesn't that absolutely epitomize the problem in the world today? We don't speak to each other. We don't
We
open
don't speak to
ourselves
the
up to
opposite
other
side.
perspectives. Yes, that's so beautiful. And one thing, I know this is a dangerous topic, but shifting gears, when you talked about sort of women's rights and that right to education, I know one of the other things that you speak to sometimes is about what the Quran says, or at least what Islam's position is on like Roe and Wade in terms of
Yeah,
it being in line. I'd love if you could speak
exactly.
to that for a moment, because I think there's
Yeah.
probably pretty big misconceptions around that as well.
Yeah, so there's a misconception. First of all, I think the fact that one Christian interpretation, not all Christian
Yeah,
interpretations, because I know a lot of Christians that disagree with that
yeah,
interpretation, it has now become the dominant interpretation that is being imposed upon the entire population of the United States, like
yeah,
all women, right?
yeah,
So the Jewish interpretation is very different. The Islamic interpretation is different, but the Islamic interpretation comes closest to Roe versus Wade
yeah,
because we can abort up to the third trimester,
yeah.
but
Wow.
with reason.
Yeah,
There has to be
yeah,
a reason. Like it cannot be, oh, I just
yeah,
don't want this baby, so I'm gonna just, there has to be a reason.
yeah,
And human life is has sanctity. So, but the mother is given preference because she is a giver of life,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
fetus is secondary. And the
yeah,
mother probably has a husband. A mother probably may have even another child. So she
yeah,
has a greater obligation. It's a greater obligation for her to live on. And
yeah,
the fetus takes secondary position because the fetus
yeah.
has not been born yet. So,
And how
and
did we get so far away, right?
how
Like,
did it's so common sense, right?
yeah,
It just makes so much sense. And
yeah,
although we all agree that, conception begins, at the first, when the zygote is planted,
yeah.
but the Quran actually describes that it's in the 90th day that the soul is actually blown into the fetus. Up until that
Interesting.
day, does not have a divine quality.
Yeah.
I think this is God's way of giving us 3 months.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I didn't know
That
that.
up
So
until then, it
yeah,
can be called. Like
Yeah.
even a child can recall itself and say, I don't want to come to this world, so
Yeah.
I'm going back,
Yes.
There's that every soul, I mean, we believe that every soul is
Yeah.
arraigned in front of God and agrees to come
Yeah.
through the parents, and they already know what kind of life they're going to have. And then when they are recalled, there might be a reason. And I say this personally because I had two pregnancies and they were both recalled. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, where do these kids go? Because God wanted
Yeah.
me to be the cat woman.
Yeah.
I am now the cat woman. Cat woman who has no children, but I have lots of people I can nurture.
Yeah, I love that. And what a beautiful image. I hadn't heard that before, but I love that idea about blowing the soul in. I think
Yeah,
it's
that literally
beautiful.
says the angel comes, breathes into
Yeah,
the fetus of a divine quality. After that, it becomes a crime
even
to,
visually, it's gorgeous.
yeah,
Now, I know you talked about the Afghan situation. I know you do a lot of work around negotiating past interfaith bias.
Mm.
What are some of the keys to building those bridges without burning them?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's you focus on the commonalities, right? So we first of
Mm.
all we agree that we are interdependent beings. We're not like living in silos. We are a tribe
Yeah,
and fundamentally believe that there is only one God. And
yeah,
we actually worship the same God. And God has sent messengers to different people, with different messages, with slightly different, scriptures, but the message is the same,
yeah,
to worship the same God, to be good to your neighbor, and to get to
yeah,
know one another, right?
yeah,
I mean, these are like the simple commandments, and to respect one another. And so when you start with those things that are in common with us, then the difference gets enriched, because then the difference is something that is of an issue of curiosity.
yeah,
Like, I want to get to know what this person does differently. Like,
yeah,
how do they approach God differently?
yeah.
So Rumi has a very beautiful image of this, that, God is like the ocean, and different religions are like rivers leading into the same ocean.
Nice.
And they
And
all have different ways, but the ocean is God, and we're all sort of emerging into that same
yeah,
ocean.
beautiful. And I want to put a pin in that word curiosity, because I think it is at the root of all effective negotiation, all effective communication, frankly,
Mhm,
all
mhm.
effective interpersonal, interfaith relationships.
Everything.
Allow yourself to be curious. Don't assume you know everything.
Exactly,
I mean, just
exactly,
ask
exactly.
more questions than trying to tell. I think it's just such a beautiful thing. And I love that you're speaking my language. It has always been a source of great curiosity and concern to me how we have so many religious wars throughout history and across nations, when at their core, exactly what you said, really at the core, most of it, they're the same principles about love my neighbor,
The
do
golden rule,
others.
the golden
All of
rule.
those golden rules
Yep.
are, yeah,
They're all the
yeah,
same. And this is fascinating, because when I do some school presentations, I belong to an interfaith organization, I'm on their board, and we have all great world religions on that. So we go to several schools and they invite us to do presentations on every religion.
yeah,
So we have these like almost like super competing PowerPoint
yeah.
presentations. Mine is better than yours is better than mine. So because we do them together,
Yeah,
everybody's like game is like up, we're like excellence now. And
yeah,
then we go into these schools and these kids are like, social studies, like they're like, I don't know, 14, 15, 16. And they all come to these and we show the best of ourselves and we
yeah.
tell them we believe, oh, we Muslims, we fast for 30 days. And the people go, well, we were supposed to fast for 40 days, but we don't. But the thing is, you know what the kids say at the end? We didn't realize they were all so similar.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's
They
beautiful.
love the difference,
Yeah,
but then they come away with that same message. It's all the same.
yeah.
So imagine parting that on to young kids at such
Oh,
an early age, where
and
they're
how do we
stretching.
not, right? I mean, the fact that we
Why
have
do we
this
not do that?
tribal, territorial approach as opposed to that from a very
Exactly.
young age, like they do, a lot of high schools now have sort of world religion courses, but I think they get in young, right? Expose these different perspectives and for all of the different beliefs, if you believe so strongly, then you should have the faith that exposing to other perspectives is not going to shake that,
It
right? I
doesn't
mean,
threaten you, it actually enriches you,
absolutely.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
I mean, there is a verse in the Quran that says, "We've created you into nations and tribes, so you may get to know one another." So
Oh,
you may get to know one another is like God's way of saying, shouldn't you be curious to know who these
yes.
nations
That's
are and who these tribes are and get to know them? That's like I created you different. I didn't create you same. I created you
yeah.
different, so you could explore and get to know one
Yeah,
another.
that's a great perspective. And
Yeah.
not just on the religious front, but I think we're seeing polarization of views like at all-time highs across the board. So
I mean,
I
here in
thought,
the United States, right?
oh, absolutely. Why don't you share some? I know you've touched a bit on it, but just share some strategies on like how can we start to achieve that harmony?
Well, I think that sometimes we have to put ourselves in the other shoes. I think that what's happened is we have literally lost the art of communication and
Yeah,
the art of negotiation
yeah,
because we are not trying to understand the other. What we're trying to do is we're trying to impose our view on
absolutely.
the other. And there's a lot of intolerance that has seeped into our consciousness. Like we are
Yeah,
so threatened by another point of view that we can't even communicate,
yeah,
right? Because somebody has told us that the other side is to be feared.
yes, yes,
And I think that fear is the basis of it, right? Because it has elevated to the consciousness of people that if I believe that, then they're going to take everything away from me.
yeah,
Even the way we speak about political candidates, look at the way we talk about them,
yeah, yeah,
they will take everything away from you, and this one will take, well, yeah, they probably will take that thing that's important to you. But why not try to get to know the other side to
yeah,
see what is their view? What is
yeah,
their long-term goal? I mean, how can you negotiate your way into making sure that not everything is taken away from you?
yeah,
So I think that communicating with one another, getting to, sitting across the table and meeting people who are not on the same page and
yeah,
the same wavelength with you,
yeah.
you know,
And
and
I'm smiling. I'm laughing over here because oh my gosh, it's like I'm flipping through pages of the art of feminine negotiation here, and you are so speaking my language. That empathy, right? Just
yeah,
truly putting yourself in the shoes of the other person and seeking not only to understand, but to try and meet their needs where possible. But surrendering ego. Oh my gosh, when did we get so conditioned to approach, as you say, negotiations about trying to impose our thoughts, impose our
mhm,
will,
mhm,
impose the outcome we think we want? There might be better outcomes out there. There's almost certainly better outcomes if you
yeah,
surrender ego
yeah,
and surrender fear, right? Like
yeah.
one of my models is called no fear negotiating. And as part of your prep process to go through the check about all the different fears that you're going to show up with and that the other party's likely to show up with.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love your approach.
And it's
Yeah.
not even like, I mean, what happened after October 7th is that I started getting calls from corporations
Yeah.
saying, well, we've heard that you do work on Islamophobia,
Yeah.
and I've been doing this work in communities, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Within the nonprofit
Yeah.
world and communities and press and media and everything else, but I never really gone into corporate America. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden I get this phone call saying, we think we need something. We need somebody like you to come in because we don't know how to talk to one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was such a fear of even communicating, because in the
Absolutely.
workplace, people are not adept to speaking about religion, not about politics. And then this thing happens and everybody is hurting.
Yeah.
People are hurting on both sides,
Yeah.
and leadership doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So now that's become like my whole new area of work where I have to go in through the DEI departments to actually do active listening,
Yeah.
listen to
But that
people,
gives me hope.
and
The
then
fact that they
yeah,
reached out, that's
yeah, it's reach corporate America, and then to make recommendations. And I cannot tell you the kinds of people that are coming to me. I'm talking like Estee Lauder,
yeah,
Ralph Lauren,
that's fabulous.
fashion, banks, you name
Yeah.
it, publishing
Yeah.
houses. And one after the other, they want to be prepared because they think something,
Yeah.
that there was a weakness
Yeah.
within the DEI departments that they
Yeah.
had, anticipated how to discuss these
Yeah.
conflicting issues. And they have a lot of younger generations, millennials, who want
Yeah.
leadership to be empathetic
Yeah.
and leadership to be tapped into how the people are feeling.
Yeah.
So this is a whole new realm of work where I
Yeah.
think this art of negotiation is now going in. So what I tell people is how to communicate with one another,
Yeah.
how to communicate across difference,
Yeah.
how to, understand that whole emotional wheel that you're in.
Yeah.
Like, where are you? Are
Yeah.
you looking for information? Are you emotionally this thing so that you even know where you are before you can even converse with the other
Yeah.
person? You know?
Absolutely. Now you mentioned about, and it's interesting because the numbers are, I mean, people are finally starting to recognize and pay attention to the numbers. How do we discount entire populations when they comprise such a significant portion of the world, right? It's
Exactly,
crazy. Now,
exactly.
when you mention Islamophobia, I know you've spoken before about Islamophobia being different, or is it different from anti-Semitism? Can you speak to that for a second?
Yeah, so it's still, and it's basically, it results in discrimination and all forms of bias
Yeah,
that affect people personally, as does anti-Semitism, right? So you can
yeah,
have simple vandalism, you can have harassment, you can have bullying and those kinds of things. But what a difference is that Islamophobia impacts Muslims not only personally, socially, as well as institutionally. So
yeah,
by socially, I mean we have no control over how the media portrays us. When the media portrays us, that portrayal then gets entrenched, and then that shapes policy, because people are making policies based on misinformation or
yeah,
disinformation about an entire people, right?
yeah,
So socially, because you may be wanting to create a place of worship or do something, and then you are socially not accepted. You're
yeah,
like, okay, you don't belong here, not you, not here, not now, that kind of thing. And I
yeah,
personally, experienced that. But also, you may have job discrimination. You may
yeah,
be fired, and a lot of people got fired because they posted something on Gaza recently. So
yeah,
that is a real consequence.
yeah,
But institutionally, we've had real policies that got shaped, like
yeah,
the war on terror was
yeah,
also domestic.
yeah,
So there was a lot of policing of Muslims. There was profiling of people,
yeah,
like my brother had to build in 3 hours into his flights because his first
yeah,
and last name matched a terrorist, but not the middle
yeah,
name and not the birthday. But it was not good enough.
yeah,
There were autistic children being pulled over for hours of questioning.
yeah,
And then we had special registration. We had the Patriot Act. And
yeah,
then we had the no ban, if you remember that, with Donald
yeah,
Trump. So we have all these policies, and now there are new policies coming in where you can't wear a keffiyeh, or you can't say certain things. So that is impacting this community
yeah,
institutionally. So it's
yeah,
much more serious and more closer to what African Americans faced
yeah.
with racism.
Yeah, I
More,
was thinking that as you were saying it.
so
That's
it's at a completely different level.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. That was a great description of that, frankly. So, and again, we need to be speaking more about these kinds of issues, right?
Yeah.
Not being
Yeah.
the dirty little secrets that everybody just,
Yeah.
with our confirmation bias, with everybody, circling this in the
Yeah.
same echo chambers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I want to circle back when you talked about that sort of feminine leadership style and both politically and beyond. And I know
Right.
you've been known to say that the secret to a more peaceful society is to elect more female leaders. So I'd love if you could
Oh.
speak to that for a sec.
Well, like I said, just looking at, when I look at the Quran, and Quran is telling us something, it's a message from God that, a female leader is probably less egotistical
Yeah,
and less tyrannical,
yeah,
and probably more inclined to care for the welfare of her people.
yeah,
So, and if I look at the 15 of state that we have had, I think there was one who was like a failed leader, and
yeah,
the rest are leading the nations
yeah,
in a a remarkable way. I
yeah,
mean, I must say they're all doing a great job.
absolutely.
So I think that the world needs a more, we have become very divisive.
Yeah,
And it is my hope that United States, which is still the most powerful country in the world, can now show a different kind of leadership
yeah,
and elect a female leader. First, it'll fall in line with the rest of the world, including the
yeah,
Muslims, which I would like to see that
yeah.
happen.
And it is long
Uh,
overdue.
and it also sends a signal to the rest of the
Yeah,
world that not only are we electing a woman, but a woman who has a lot of qualities that the world needs. Although
yeah,
she is considered a law and enforcement
yeah,
type of person, a prosecutor who will prosecute criminals, she has also spoken about a ceasefire. She
yeah,
has also said openly, hey, we need to take care of the Palestinians. She
yeah.
went against the
Yes.
wave of you don't say anything, I mean, she's got the guts to be able to
Yeah,
say that. I think because she has the credentials.
Yeah.
And she also represents many things to many people. So
Yeah.
she's almost like on the color wheel. She's
Yeah.
like a colorblind kind of a wheel. White people identify her because of her Caucasian features.
Yeah.
South Asians completely think she's theirs.
That's
Black people think
interesting.
she's theirs.
That's
You know,
funny. Yeah.
I mean, she's got the working woman kind of a suit. All the working women
Yeah.
identify with her, right? She's
Yeah.
got, I mean, she has, she has a lot of qualities that the world needs right now, and we need feminine leadership. And
Yeah.
just the way she has already started interacting with boldness and with,
Yeah.
she's been outspoken. Her voice is the right pitch, meaning
Yeah.
it comes across as a strong voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, she
Yeah.
is the embodiment of a strong woman with feminine traits.
And I love that you speak to the traits and the qualities, because I think some of this transcends gender. And, one of the things I've been sort of on a mission to, like, let's reframe how we define success. Let's redefine and reframe how we look at power, like get away from that so-called masculine approach where it's about power over others
Right.
versus power with, and start
Right.
looking at some of those traits that for too long we saw as a weakness and start recognizing them as actually our secret weapons and strength to be able to lean into curiosity and compassion and still be assertive, still be strong. They're not, counterintuitive concepts. So I
Yeah.
love that you're doing that.
Well, I think that, everybody knows that it doesn't matter whether you've had a child or not. Everybody knows that women have 360-degree vision.
Yeah.
We can see from the back of our head.
Yeah.
We have that sixth eye. We can
Yeah.
sense things, and we have sensory perceptions
Yeah.
that I think that many men don't have.
Yeah.
That third eye, that
Yeah.
intuition that we tap into, that we know fundamentally there's something. And I think that we negotiate, even if we're childless, we negotiate as if we have children, and we've been
Yeah.
negotiating all our lives with our kids, right?
That's interesting.
Have we not been negotiating
Yes.
every single day? You do not fight with this one.
Yeah,
This one,
absolutely.
you're trying to make peace all the time in the home. You
Yeah.
are in the throes. You are multitasking like crazy. And all of that comes in really handy. And that
Yeah.
means you have the ability to be super adaptable.
Yeah.
And in an interconnected, complex world, we
Yeah.
need a person that has that
Yeah.
capacity and that capability.
And even a relationship, as you were saying that, I mean, we had to of necessity negotiate better, be better, more skilled at negotiating relationship as a survival mechanism. Because for
Yeah.
so long we had so few rights. We didn't
Right.
have the right to hold property or credit or to vote. So it was a necessity to build and hone those skills at relationship building.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
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 Now,
Yeah.
what was one of the most surprising things that you discovered either while researching or writing your book, The 30 Rights of Muslim Women?
Yeah. So one of the things that, I mean, there are many, many things that are in the book, but for this particular topic, I found that womanhood and motherhood are two sides of the same coin.
Mm,
And as I was researching my book and saying, what women do so much work. I mean, as mothers,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Caregiving that is
Yeah.
done, that I actually went down the list of things that women do and monetized that.
Oh, wow. I love
And then I came up with a number of what a woman should earn just from motherhood.
it.
Just not even extra stuff, just
Yeah.
like ordinary stuff. And I came up with like minimum $60,000
Yeah.
that a woman should get every year just to be a mother,
Yeah.
because you are the caretaker of that child. You're raising a child. You're
Yeah.
raising the next generation.
Yeah.
And imagine if for 18 years she got 60,000, she would get $1 million.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
would have $1 million. And so why doesn't the state, or why doesn't the husband, or why doesn't XYZ
Yeah.
monetize motherhood
Yeah.
and take motherhood seriously? Why we are willing to pay nannies $2,000-$3,000,
It's
right?
true.
Come in. But so I think that monetizing motherhood would be a very interesting way of acknowledging,
Yeah.
respecting that role that women play, and all the things that the Republicans are complaining about. We don't have enough children and all this other
Yeah.
stuff.
That's interesing.
Yeah, and a woman
Yeah.
is supposed to give up her career and have 5 children. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
she could have 5 children if you gave her 5 nannies.
Yeah.
Like if we found a way
Yeah.
to take care of women while if they are working or they want to work or they want to be a career woman. So I'm just saying that we need
Yeah.
to look at motherhood differently,
Yeah.
and
I
so
love that.
that
And
was one of
valiant,
the
like,
things that
and
was the
you hit the
pride for
nail.
me.
Yeah. And when you say it, it's the next generation. What can be more important, right? In so many ways. And
Exactly.
that doesn't even take into account all the 100 other balls that women tend to be juggling at any given moment, right? It's amazing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Daisy, this has been amazing, super interesting conversation. I could keep going on and on and on as we go. I'm thinking of all these other roads, so we'll have to continue this conversation
Right.
another time. But I
Okay.
normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? Doesn't have to be about anything we've talked about, just one of those aha moments where you think about showing up differently.
Yeah. Well, what I do is keep myself completely open to anything that is being thrust upon me.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm a simple container now, just an
yeah.
empty container that is ready and mature to receive anything.
Oh, I
So,
love that.
like a big challenge can be dropped into my lap,
Yeah,
and I won't say no. I'll just say, okay, how can I get this done? Because something is being thrust upon me that is
yeah,
it's like it's making me into the greater part of who I thought I was. So in
yeah,
other words, I'm ready for expansion.
yeah.
I'm ready to assume and accept more because I feel like that challenge makes me grow even more.
Yeah, I
Right?
love that. And so many, and for the reasons you've said, and as you said about that empty container, my gosh, imagine what a better world it would be if we all looked at ourselves that way, open to new perspectives, open to new ideas, open to the
Yeah.
concept that what we thought previously was wrong, like what it just being open containers to receive. I think that's a gorgeous
Mm.
image that could change the world. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Daisy, where can our listeners learn more about you?
So I am right now on all social media, DaisyCon. I'm also on a website, daisycon.com. So people can send me an email if they want. It's simple, info, or daisy at
Yeah.
daisycon.com. I have a book, 30 Rights of Muslim Women, on Amazon. I mean, these little nuggets that we spoke about are in the
Yes.
book. So if people really want to see for themselves, they can
Yeah.
purchase the book. Yeah, I'm
And you have
available.
a memoir as well, don't you?
I have a memoir called Born with Wings, and it's my own spiritual journey of how I
Mhm.
had to assume leadership role in a community. And why Born with Wings, why crawl through life?
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
that's
Nice.
really like none of us should be crawling through life because we all born
Yeah.
with wings and
Uh,
shouldn't allow anybody to clip our wings.
well, Daisy, we need more of you out there. We need you to replicate yourself. Thank you so much for joining us today. Such insightful answers, such an interesting conversation. Thanks for being here and sharing with us.
Thank you so much. Okay, and I'll look forward to seeing you again.
Yes, and for our listeners, we will make sure to put all of that information about Dr. Khan in the show notes so that you can follow up, check out her book, ask to get it into your local bookstore as well as on Amazon. And I have no doubt you got lots of value from this. I know I did some really interesting perspectives, new ways of thinking about things that can be a game changer, not just in your personal lives, but on the bigger stage as well. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that yet and give the gift of sharing. We talked about a lot of really important issues today. Share this episode with other people in your life so that we can magnify the impact. And before we sign off, just want to share some ways that we can work together. If you happen to be looking to up-level your negotiation skills, because let's face it, all of life is a negotiation, as we're talking about here, whether negotiating with your kids, your intimate partner on the global scheme. And I've got everything from online to group to my signature VIP experiences available to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve in life while also getting more for others. If that sounds interesting, check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And that is a wrap for this episode. Until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.